Very few cars are excellent at everything, especially at the more budget-oriented end of the spectrum. Some cars are just okay at a lot of things, and those are the ones that tend to be forgettable. I think the ones that stick to mind are the ones that excel at a few things, even if they're lacking at others. Those few things become its selling point, its reason for existing, or its raison d'etre, as the French would say. Like most cars, the Honda HRV S doesn't excel at everything. In fact, in a lot of ways, it is a bit behind in this price bracket. It does excel at least two things though, and that's what we're going to talk about in this video. It sells for 1,250,000 pesos. Is it worth your money? Let's find out. Honda is making safety a priority on all of their new vehicles. All their new models, from the base model to the top of the line, now come with Honda Sensing, which is their suite of active safety features and driver assist features. Now, surviving an accident is good, but preventing it from happening in the first place is way, way better. And that's why I've been a huge proponent of active safety features like autonomous emergency braking. Adaptive cruise control also helps in a lot of ways if used correctly. Later in this video, we'll demonstrate the car's advanced driver assist systems. But first, let's do a walk around. Like a lot of Honda's other cars in the Philippines, the HRV is a global model. It's sold in Europe, in Australia, in China, Southeast Asia, in Japan. There's also a version of the HRV that's sold in the US, but that one is very different with different body panels and a different interior. In the Philippines, this is what we get, which looks very similar to the ones that they get in Europe and in Southeast Asia. Here in the Philippines, the HRV comes in two variants, the top of the line V, and this one right here is the base model S. Just a correction, we now have three variants, and the RS Turbo is now the top of the line variant. I think if you park this next to the top of the line V, if you're not that familiar with the HRV, you'd be hard-pressed to tell which one is the base model and which one is the top of the line. The S doesn't look like it's been downgraded in any way, at least on the outside. In fact, I think it looks better in some ways. Let's start with these wheels. Both the S and the V come with 17-inch wheels, but I think these look a bit sharper. You get this two-tone gloss black and polished aluminum design. The tires are 215/60 R17s, and you get disc brakes on all four corners. As for the suspension, you get a McPherson strut at the front and a torsion beam at the back. The S also gets a different grille design, which I think also looks a bit better. You get these horizontal slats on the grille, while the V gets a honeycomb design. The headlights are the same as the V. You get LED headlamps with LED DRLs. This doesn't get the aggressive chin of the V though, and that makes it look a little bit less sporty. And you also don't get the kink here, which adds a bit of character to the V. Honda is making safety a top priority in their recent vehicles. So Honda Sensing comes as standard in all variants of the HRV. So yeah, this gets adaptive cruise, automatic braking, lane keep assist, but you won't find a radar unit anywhere at the front. And that's because, like Subaru's, this uses an optical system. You have cameras mounted at the windshield which scans the road in front of you. And you get fog lamps down here. The HRV is a subcompact crossover, so it's a lot smaller than the Ford Territory and the Toyota Corolla Cross. Like a lot of Honda's recent designs, the new HRV also looks more mature than the previous generation. You don't get a lot of swooping lines. Instead, you get straight horizontal lines, like the shoulder line that runs from the front all the way to the back. So like the previous HRV, you won't find the rear door opener over here. It's actually on the C-pillar, which I guess is supposed to trick you into thinking that it's a two-door coupe. Now, speaking of coupes, you also get this sharply sloping coupe-like roofline. It limits your rear cargo space, but I think the visual trade-off is worth it. This has a smart entry system, so you can lock or unlock the door without getting the key out of your pocket. So to lock the door, put your hand here, finger. And to unlock it, put your hand here. With this sharply sloping rear window and this futuristic looking rear light bar, I think it kind of looks like a budget Porsche Cayenne from the back. You get a manual liftgate. And in here, you get over 400 liters of cargo space with the second row seats up, which is enough to fit 2 luggage bags and a couple of smaller bags. The HRV features Honda's ULT system, so if you need more cargo space, you can either fold these second row seats forward, or if you need more vertical space, you can lift the seat bottoms instead. Here on the inside is where it becomes clear that you're in the base model. You get a lot of hard plastics. This is hard plastic over here, hard plastic, hard plastic. You get a polyurethane steering wheel, fabric seats. But despite the usage of more affordable materials, it still feels well built. The steering wheel, despite being made of polyurethane, feels quite soft. The knobs and the buttons feel high quality, with the exception of these buttons on the infotainment screen. Actually, the screen would be my least favorite part of the car. It looks and feels aftermarket, and this hump at the back makes it look like a CRT TV. It looks less impressive than other crossovers in the same price bracket. But since this is the base model, I'm not gonna take away too many points because of that. The HRV V though still comes with the same screen. Thankfully, you get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. You also get a reverse camera, but you don't get active guidelines. When I turn the wheel, the lines don't move. You do get 3 camera angles though. Now thankfully, the other touch points like these armrests over here and also over here are leather wrapped and padded. Now the dashboard continues the horizontal theme going on the outside. You get a lot of these horizontal lines over here. It all looks quite conservative. I like how they added this leather wrap panel over here, which adds a bit of asymmetry to the interior. Usage of gloss black accents is very minimal. You have some gloss black accents over here, and that's about it really. By the way, you get power folding side mirrors. By the way, one thing that's unique on the HRV is this knob over here. This is for diffusing the air coming from the air vent. Para kahit nakatapat sa iyo yung air vent, hindi masakit sa mata. You get an analog speedometer, an analog tachometer, and a multifunction display at the center. In here you have an electronic parking brake with auto hold. The steering wheel tilts and it telescopes. You get plenty of buttons here because this gets Honda sensing. So you have buttons for adaptive cruise control, for lane centering. You have buttons here for your infotainment screen. You have these cup holders here with these spring-loaded tabs, so your cup is always snug. Okay, so here's the back seat. Space is quite plentiful. The front seat is adjusted to my height, and is that 8 inches of legroom? The headroom is quite decent. I have about I'm guessing that's 2.5 inches of headroom. You get 2 air con vents over here, no USB ports, some storage down here. You get a foldable armrest with 2 cup holders, and thankfully you also get cup holders here on the door cards, which is nice because if you have a 5th passenger sitting here, you still have access to your cup holders. By the way, you also have one on that side. The center tunnel is not very high, but this part of the seat is pretty high. So if you sit here at the center, if you're kind of taller than everybody, so if I sit here at the center, my head actually brushes against the roof. Below 1.3 million pesos, only 3 crossovers come with ADAS. And by ADAS, I mean adaptive cruise control, automatic braking, and some sort of lane keeping system. Only the Ford Territory, the Changan CS35, and the Honda HRV S come with these features. Now, I haven't driven the CS35 yet, as I'm still waiting for my lend out. The Ford Territory is a very good crossover. It's one of my favorites. In terms of ADAS though, the HRV has a bit of an advantage over the Ford Territory, because the HRV has lane keep assist, which follows the lines on the road by actively steering the car. The Ford Territory only has lane departure warning, which just beeps at you if you stray away from your lane. Okay, so now there's a curve on the road. The car should automatically steer itself and follow the lines on the road. As you can see, it's doing exactly that. I think adaptive cruise control is even more useful in stop and go traffic like this. So right now, as you can see, my foot is not doing anything, and the vehicle is automatically slowing down and even coming to a complete stop on its own. And when the traffic moves again, it automatically resumes. So it definitely makes your life a lot easier. It makes driving through traffic a lot less stressful. By the way, at these speeds, lane keep assist doesn't work. It only works on the highway at speeds above 70 kph. But adaptive cruise works at any speed. Just one minor complaint about the adaptive cruise of the HRV. It tends to leave too much space between your car and the car in front of you. So kung medyo kita ng traffic, bubusinahan ka sa likod. The HRV also has autonomous emergency braking, and that's something that I think should be equipped on more modern cars. Now obviously, testing this in the real world would be unsafe, but it kind of works like braking during adaptive cruise. But the difference is that AEB is always turned on, and it only works at the last minute. So you can either avoid an accident or reduce the damage if an impact does happen. Okay, so right now we have adaptive cruise turned on and we have lane centering turned on. So the car is basically driving itself. My feet are not doing anything, my hands are not doing anything. Of course, your attention always has to be on the road, so you can intervene if ever you have to. Okay, so let's take control. Having the Honda City's naturally aspirated 1.5 liter engine and having a bigger and heavier body, you'd assume that this would not be the quickest in the segment. And you'd be somewhat correct. The HRV is not the quickest in the segment, but I think for most people it's going to be quite adequate. Even on the highway, if you need to do a bit of overtaking, you still have enough power for that. Yeah, barely. Okay, that was full throttle. If you want quick, go for the V variant, which is Honda's 1.5 liter turbo with 174 horsepower. I think for casual drivers who are mostly in the city, it's gonna be more than adequate. That's 100. I drove this to the mountains of Antipolo with 3 other adults, and it managed to go up some very steep inclines without problems. So if your concern is aabot mo to sa Baguio, I'm pretty sure aabot to sa Baguio. While the engine doesn't put out a lot of horses, I think the transmission tuning is very good. Now, most car enthusiasts are not fans of CVTs, and I'm actually one of those people, but I think Honda makes some of the best CVTs in the game. When you put your foot down, yeah, you get that recognizable CVT drone, but the rubber band effect is not as bothersome as on other cars. Having paddle shifters also gives you more control over the transmission. I think for a lot of Filipinos, what's more important than acceleration is fuel economy. And that's one area where the HRV excels. I got 20.5 kpl on the highway without even trying. If I tried hypermiling, I'm sure Honda's claimed 21.43 kpl would be achievable. In the city, I got 11.2 kpl in moderate traffic. If I had to nitpick, I'm not a fan of this fuel gauge. It only has 10 bars. I wish it had more discrete steps, because I just bought 400 pesos worth of fuel and it didn't go up at all. When I review cars, I always ask, why does this exist? Among a sea of competition, why should I choose this particular car? And sometimes, I have no clear answer to those questions. If you've been a subscriber for a while, you've probably seen a few videos where I pointed that out. In this very competitive price bracket, the Honda HRV S doesn't excel at everything. It doesn't have the most powerful engine. Its interior lags far behind the Ford Territory and the Geely Coolray. It excels though at safety, at driver assist technology, and in fuel economy. All of them combined are quite a potent mixture. We can get ADAS on the Ford Territory, but ADAS plus exceptional fuel economy at a price below 1.3 million pesos, you only get those on the HRV S. And that is its raison d'etre.